to order. Today is Tuesday, November 26th, 2024, 6 p.m. And I am recognizing that we have a quorum with Commissioner Cox, Commissioner Depper, Commissioner Keefe, and Commissioner Oski present. Are there any additions or modifications to the agenda?
Yes, this is Commissioner Cox. I would like to add a new item 4.3 under Police Department business, quote, all in, end quote, presentation by Chief Murad and Q&A 45 minutes.
Okay, there's a motion to amend the agenda to add item 4.3, all-in presentation by Chief Murad. Are there any objections? Okay, the agenda is amended. Next is, may I have a motion to adopt the minutes, approve the minutes? Mary, please mute yourself. May I please have a motion to adopt the minutes from October 22nd, 2024?
I so move.
And a second? Okay, without objection, the minutes are adopted from October 22nd. Now is the public forum. Can you raise your hand if you're here to speak? Two? Okay. You can come to the microphone. Please try and keep your comments, reasonable amount of time and be respectful. Thank you. And state your name and where you live.
Hi, my name is Mike Conroy. Is that working?
You live in Burlington?
Live in Burlington.
Okay.
Been a Burlington resident for about 40 plus years. I'm here tonight just make a couple of points.
Great. Can you speak a little bit more into the mic?
Yeah, bring it forward a little.
You have to push the button so the light is green?
Yeah, it's green.
Okay.
I'm here tonight to just make a couple of points. I'm a little dismayed, like many people, about the state of affairs in the city, my city. And I'm not sure if this is the right place for it, but it's the police commission, and I've been to a few city council meetings and thought this was another logical spot for me to stop. So comments for what they're worth, really just my thoughts for you guys. Number one, as it relates to Chief Murad's resignation, I would love it if we could at some point, whether it's before his resignation or his last day, or if it has to wait till after. I'm not sure how that works personnel-wise, but I'd love to hear his reasons for leaving, for resigning. I think if there are hard things for us to hear as a city, we deserve to hear it. We should hear the good and the bad. If he's got an awesome job lined up in the Bahamas, more power to him. But I think if there are hard parts about the job here in Burlington, and I think there probably are, I think the city needs to know that. We need to be more transparent as it relates to that sort of thing. So my 2 cents about this particular resignation of the chief and what may be coming, the way things have been going with the struggle to get officers into Burlington. Obviously, things need to change. It's not news, but so one thing that I'd love to hear would be at some point, why did Chief Murad decide to leave? The second is I came across a day or so ago the article, and I think it was Vermont Digger, about the survey, the police union's survey from fairly recent. In the headline, again, it's not sort of news, but it's in the headline was the word crisis. And I think that they picked that up from someone's comment in the survey, an officer. And I think I've been at a couple of council meetings and used that as a word similar to that. To me, it seems like the city's in crisis, and has been for some time. And so my note here was to just say, I'm not sure there's a sense of urgency among the city. I'm sure at the police department and the people who are trying to recruit officers, they're probably doing everything they possibly can. I just wonder if the city's as behind that effort as it can or should be, because that article, the numbers and where we stand, we could be 2 months from now, 3 months from now, in a tougher situation, and that's sort of hard to imagine. So last thought really is just in terms of the police, our state of affairs, my thoughts. One, there's, again, this kind of goes to everybody, police department, city administration. I don't remember the last time I read or heard any good news about our police department. I can't remember it. Nothing comes to mind. I'm sure there good things happen with our police department every single day. I've looked over the police report to the commission 4, 5, 6 months back just to see what comes up, and I know there are commendations, and that's awesome. But I think that sort of thing needs to be made public, much more public than it is here through just the minutes. So my suggestion is if there is a publicist or a marketing person, or whether it's a person, if they don't have one at the police office, at the police department, and because they're all out in the field when they can, I understand that. They don't have enough people to run the show, so that stuff, maybe the city has a marketing person that they could lend to the police department and maybe hold a press conference once a month or something like that. Tell us what's going on, what's better, what's improved. Tell us what's not working, just so that, I mean, we hear about that stuff. It comes in dribs and drabs, different places in different ways, but if the police department or the city would take some concrete steps to make that happen, I think that would be awesome. So just a couple thoughts on my mind. I wanted to share them. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it. And I forgot to start out with what I always do with these when I say this. I totally appreciate your service to the city and the time you put into it. We all appreciate that. So thank you much on a holiday week especially. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Conroy.
Hello, commissioners, chief. I'm Todd DeLuca from Ward 4.
Sorry, what was your name?
Todd DeLuca. I'm here tonight. I just wanted to commend Sergeant Vivori and Officer Locature. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Two of the BPD officers who I've met recently. Regarding Sergeant Vivori, on the morning of November 7th, I was peacefully recording a police incident on North Avenue when I was suddenly assaulted by a bystander who grabbed my hand and my phone. Sergeant Vivori quickly stepped in, restored order, and protected my right to record. He was professional, articulate, and effective during a tense situation. As one commenter on the video of the incident later put it, quote, "Not gonna cap, an articulate cop that actually makes sense is pretty cool to see," end quote. Regarding Officer Locature, yesterday, November 26th, I think that's yesterday, I recorded an eviction of a bike path encampment by BPD. While there, I saw staff from many BPD programs deployed together: LEO, CSO, CSL, and CAIP. The officer on scene, Officer Locature, was friendly, professional, and took the time to answer my questions. Thank you all for listening, and thank you for your service. Good night.
Thank you, Mr. DeLuca. Anybody else like to make comments to the commission tonight? Okay. The next item on the agenda, I believe, is the chief's report. Yes, the chief's report. Chief Murad.
Thank you so much. I want to echo some of the public comments that I am really both impressed and grateful that you are all here on a Tuesday before Thanksgiving. I just left Rice Stunt Night. My kids both go to the public schools here in Burlington, but I've been going to Rice Stunt Night for a very long time and was over at the Flynn, had to leave a little bit early to make it to this. But it was really, we all make these kinds of sacrifices, and you guys do it as citizens and volunteers and step up, and I think that's really wonderful, and I want to just say thank you for that. Yeah, terrific. So this opening page is I'm going to try to go through the chief's report relatively quickly to move to the other one, which I think is a little bit longer, the addition to the agenda. But we were at IACP last month. I actually returned from IACP the night of the last police commission meeting, and therefore couldn't put together all the pieces of our attendance at IACP for that police commission meeting. So I think was at this the morning of the last police commission meeting in October. And this was a discussion at IACP. IACP stands for International Association of Chiefs of Police. It's a massive conference that's annual. This year's was held in Boston. Upwards of 15,000 to 18,000 attendees. That's police officers and chiefs and vendors and people who work adjacent to policing. It's a huge event. This was a discussion about some of the things that were just talked about by some of our public comments. How do we make known the things that make people become police officers and the good work that they do in ways that doesn't, that can stand up when bad things happen? And bad things do happen. Bad things happen sometimes because of bad acts and sometimes because of bad situations. And they are, frankly, more attractive to the news and to the media. And a component of that, which the gentleman there in the center on the stage, John Miller, who is a CNN correspondent and also was a very close friend of mine when I worked at the NYPD, and he was the Deputy Commissioner of Intelligence, he pointed out that a lot of it is just that, when the cops do what's right, it's what they're supposed to do, and that's not news. And when they do something that's wrong, it is. But how do we get a little bit of what's right into the news? And that's a challenge. So next page, please. This is us down at the IACP. We always take a total of 4 people: the chief, another member of the executive team, and then 2 employees one a supervisor and one an officer. I try to bring non-sworn employees as well, but those 4 are there for the full conference, which lasts from Friday through Tuesday. But because it was in Boston, we were able to do a field trip. I remember field trips when I was a kid at Underhill Central School. Actually, it probably was Browns River Middle School, when we all jumped on a bus and went down to Boston, and we saw the Constitution, the USS Constitution, and we saw the aquarium and everything. And so we rented a van, got a driver, and brought anybody who was available that day and wanted to go, and we paid them overtime for it, to come down and get to experience the scope of this event, because I think it's really important for them to be able to see how much there is in this profession and how much this profession really does have to offer. So they weren't able to attend the entire conference. We didn't have to get them hotel rooms. They weren't allowed to attend, for example, breakout sessions like that one that was on the cover, but they were able to go on the floor where all the vendors are with brand new technologies and new methods of how to work with artificial intelligence in policing, or with new means of keeping people safe, or new types of body armor. And a lot of the people that you see up there are professional employees too, because everybody in the department matters. And so, the gentleman with the hat is a CSL. He's one of our social work team. The young woman standing right to his left is one of our CSOs. The young woman on the right of the rightmost person on kneeling, she is one of our ID technicians. And so I felt that it was important to make certain we had as many other kinds of roles there, because it's not just about officers. Next, please. This is just sort of a page that shows all the things there. Drone as first responder is something that is really being looked at by a lot of agencies. Axon AI over on the side there. Commissioner Cox had talked about that a little bit. Some really cool bicycles. The big limo is the Beast. It is the U.S. Secret Service's limo. I believe they have more than one, but that is the presidential limo. There's a robotic dog there that can open doors and go into different kinds of buildings and things. A lot of cool stuff out there. Most of it very expensive, but it's still neat. Next, please. Our Community Academy is going to be coming up, and so these are two slides, two ads for it. They're both kind of redundant to each other, but I put them both on the same PowerPoint slide. And the QR code does work for anybody who's watching this or watches it later via YouTube, for example, and can take you to the application process to come aboard. It's a really terrific experience, I think. It's a way that we let people into the police department and give them a sense of what it is that we do. It starts on January 8th, rolls through February 12th, and it's a commitment. It's 3 hours a night, Wednesdays each week, and we do a lot. We talk about what we do on patrol. We talk about our detectives. We talk about ID techs, which are sort of CSI, the people who do crime scene evidence tech work. We talk about our CAPE team and the social work angle that we have developed in the BPD, and a number of other things. And then we put people through some scenarios towards the end that have been effective, and I think people have taken a lot from it. Next, please. Here's some things that we do. A lot of this comes from our social media channels, so we do put this up on social media. Can we get wider distribution or attention to it? That's challenging. We worked with the schools to do their safety drills, and so this is Katie Mara, one of our CSLs. She worked along with a sergeant and another CSL to do the school drill. That used to be the purview of our SROs, or school resource officers. Since we don't have those anymore, the school asked us to assist, and we were able to put a sergeant over there and some CSLs. The CSL, Katie actually is the one who thought of this, to bring a certificate back to the school just to commend them on how well they conducted themselves during the drill. I think this is the kind of positive story that you're talking about. We did put it on our social channels, but can I get WCAX to do a piece on this? That is a little bit more challenging, but I take to heart your points during the points that were made during public comment, and I'm going to talk to our PIO. We do have a public information officer about not just putting these kinds of things on social, but making press releases of them too. The risk there is that we start to sort of send out too many press releases, but I think a balance can be achieved. Next, please. We participated in a cleanup that was sponsored by the Greater Burlington YMCA. It was a cleanup of syringes and litter and other things. That included, you see there, Lieutenant Mai Win. He is just amazing. His last day, sadly, is Saturday. But Mai did 20 years with the police department. He's a really amazing person. Additionally, our redaction specialist who's taking the photo, which is Shan Chen, participated, as did the PIO, Sarah Tim herself. And so it was great to have them do that work and be there with the community to do that. Next, please. This is our head count. And we have moved in the wrong direction in 2024. We began 2024 with 69, and we are currently at 65. And actually, as of today, we're at 64. This is a snapshot as of the first of each month, but we just lost an officer yesterday to Winooski because she could be an SRO there, and Winooski offered her an opportunity to work in the schools. This was a young woman, a new American young woman. She had connected to the BPD through our SRO, and came aboard. She was a CSO first and then a police officer. She was really a great addition to the team. But Winooski said, we have an empty SRO part. Their SRO just retired after a very long career working very closely in the schools, and she saw that opportunity. Next, please. This is actual versus effective. The top line is actual. The blue line on the bottom is effective. What does that mean? It means that, for example, we have very few ineffective employees right now, which is good. I have one employee who is on maternity leave, and I have one, she's on limited duty. She's working every day, but she cannot be deployed in the field because of being with child. And then I have another who is on long-term military deployment, and they cannot be actively deployed. But other employees, and then one on terminal leave, meaning that he is eating through his accrued vacation before he finalizes his departure. Other than that, we have people that we've got sort of available to us effective is really what matters when it comes to deployment, but actual is obviously where we put our people. I've got 2 at the academy as well, and both of those people at the academy are graduating tomorrow, which means now that doesn't make them effective yet. They will return to us. We will put them through 580 hours of field training with a 3-phase process with different field trainers. And then at the end of that process, if they make it through and successfully complete it, they will be considered effective officers as well. So that's how that term works. Next, please. So this is another look at it, just sort of to see it in a different way. 65 total, 60 effective, and again, as of today, it's actually 64, because this was a snapshot as of the 15th, and that officer finished, her last day was yesterday, so she was not counted in this tally. So as of the 15th, 65 total, 60 effective, and this is how they're distributed. There are 5 who are ineffective: military, maternity, the Vermont Police Academy. There are 13 supervisors. There are 10 detectives. There are 6 airport officers. There are 4 on special assignment. That's normally 3. That is our domestic violence prevention officer, our narcotics officer, who works with the detectives who are assigned to the narcotics unit, but is not a detective, and it's a growth sort of course for patrol officers. And I currently have 2 officers as recruitment officers because one is leaving in January to go to the airport to finish out her career. She's already stayed past 20 with us. I'm incredibly grateful for Corporal Irwin, who has just been an amazing recruiter over her career. And we have brought in another officer, Sergio Caldieri, to be the next recruitment officer. And so the 2 of them are working together right now, which means that I have 4 in specialized positions, which normally is not the case. It'd normally be 3. We have 5 community service officers, and we're fully staffed on our CSLs, or community support liaisons, the in-house social workers, and we have 6 of those. We actually, if I had done this today, we brought aboard 2 more community service officers, but they were not brought aboard as of November 15th, so they're not counted in this snapshot, but we currently have 7 community service officers. Those 2 new ones, of course, are in field training. They're learning how to do that job, but we've made some progress hiring for both the CSOs, and as I said, we're full up on the CSLs. Next, please. This is a huge worry for me, a huge worry. These are our supervisor vacancies. So we've talked with the police commission before about the number of supervisors versus the number of officers. The number of supervisors are determined by the numbers of shifts that we have more than anything else. And so, it is true. If I have 4 officers on a shift, having a supervisor 1 to 4 is a bad span of control. A better span of control for the profession that's used as a best practice around the country is 1 to 8. A supervisor to 8 subordinate officers. That is not possible for us because the shifts are what determines what we need. I mean, we have a day shift and an evening shift and a midnight shift, and there has to be a supervisor on each of those. As you see, we normally have a doubling up of supervisors on the day shifts and the evening shifts, which are the busiest. We have a lieutenant and then a sergeant, but we don't have enough. We only have 5 out of 11 sergeants right now. And this actually doesn't show a floater sergeant because that floater sergeant was never assigned to a specific shift. But that floater position is vacant. So, DC Ops is vacant. We're missing a patrol lieutenant, and as of, and that I'm actually prognosticating a little bit because that missing one is Lieutenant Wynn, who I said will be leaving on Saturday. But we'll be down 1 lieutenant. We are down sergeants. We don't have a sergeant at the airport. We don't have an administrative lieutenant. We don't have a street crime sergeant, and therefore we don't have a street crime team either. And these are really big holes for us, and really, these are worrisome for me. The Deputy Chief of Administration is probably he reaches his 20th year on July 11th of 2025, which means he will probably be out as of May of 2025. And that is an issue for us too. We have posted 4 deputy chief positions. One we just posted with the Police Executive Research Forum, which is a really great mailing list. I'm hopeful we'll get some terrific candidates from that. We've already gotten a couple of candidates from having posted via HR, the city HR, about a month ago, or 3 weeks ago, we posted the deputy chief positions, and we are hopeful to be able to hire those. So we're working hard on trying to bring some of those aboard. I hope that we'll have candidates in January, and clearly this body will be a huge component of that vetting and interview process. Yes, Commissioner Oskey.
When you hire supervisors, do they have to go to the academy?
No, so supervisors almost entirely come internally. So a sergeant is a patrol officer, and yes, he had or she had to go to the academy, but not to become a sergeant. We run a process. We put together a test that measures knowledge of the criminal law, knowledge of patrol procedures. We do an interview, and we usually do, especially not always for sergeants, but definitely for lieutenants, scenarios with regard to how you deal with employees. Like an employee comes to work intoxicated. What are you going to do about that?
If someone comes from out of state, do they have to go to the academy?
Yes, so an out-of-state, and this happened to me, and by the way, it is very rare for us as an agency to use external deputy chiefs. I believe I am the only external deputy chief to come to the police department, certainly in the last 40 years. Chiefs of police come from outside not infrequently, but deputy chiefs not so often. We're going to be bringing in potentially 2, and that's going to be a challenge. If they are not Vermont certified officers already, then they do have to go through the academy, but not the 16-week residential program. They are given a training prescription based on the training they have already accumulated over a career that's documented. They give it to the state, and the Vermont Criminal Justice Council and the Vermont Police Academy say, okay, so you already know how to do this and this and this, but we do this and this a little differently. So we're gonna ask that you come down, you do a couple of days or sometimes even 2 weeks of sort of a really crash course in Vermont's statutes around arrest, Title 13, around Title 23, which is the vehicle title, around use of force standards for the state. And then they say, okay, that's enough for you now to go be a police officer in whatever way your agency wants you to be. If they want to put you through a field training program, they will. I had to go through field training here when I came. But then they also say there's also another 10, 15, maybe 20 different classes that you have to take over the next year, and at the end of that, we will call you a fully certified level 3 law enforcement officer. So my first year here, I came in October of 2018, and the last course I did was actually on October 1st of 2019, the very year date of my arrival, and I drove down to Pittsford a lot that year. I drove down to Pittsford for, domestic violence classes, for classes about animal welfare, for classes about search and rescue, things, frankly, that Burlington doesn't really even do, but nevertheless, those are components of what Vermont expects of all law enforcement officers. And so I did all that, and our deputy chief arrivals, if they come from out of state, will have to do that as well. They also must be currently employed by a law enforcement agency or fewer than 3 years out. If you have been uncertified or out of employment for more than 3 years, you are not eligible for the lateral program in Vermont. You would have to go through that entire 16-week police academy. I can't imagine many people at a deputy chief stage of their career who would do that, but maybe. Next, please. These roles that are unique to us. And so again, 5 CSOs, because that was as of the 22nd when I made this document, but it's now 7 CSOs, 6 CSLs. That's the new Cape Team van. They are doing a lot of really wonderful work. One of our public comments, talked about the presence of CSLs and of the Cape Team at, for example, moving an encampment that is in a place that it just can't stay any longer. They're really incredibly valuable members of the team, and I'm proud of having worked with Lacey Smith to make the Cape Team and the CSL program. Next, please. The priority response plan, I hate it. A lot of people hate it. I know the mayor has expressed a desire to try to reevaluate it a bit, and I'm certainly open to that, but this is what we've been using for the past, we've amended it a couple times, but this is what we've been using since 2021 when we introduced it. And it's explained on the next slide, please, how it works. And this is in every single one, so I don't need to go through it for this body. Next, please. Incident volume, we're down a little bit year to date, 3% compared to last year, but it's still more than it was back in 2019 pre-pandemic, and we're doing it with a lot fewer officers. Next, please. Are the incident trends, and you'll see there, the one that really just remains awful is overdose. But those are non-fatal overdose. I've added that to the description to make certain that it's clear that it's non-fatal. God, I cannot imagine if those were all fatal overdoses. What a horror that would be. But this is a problem anyway. And then the other categories there, you can see where those are as well. And that's it for this presentation.
Thank you. You can just roll into your next
Sure.
presentation.
Great. So next, please. Great. So this one has some animations and stuff, so when it moves, it'll move in a different way. Yeah, unshare the other one. There we go. Awesome. So there was an article in Vermont Digger about a survey that was conducted by the BPOA. They put it together for their own information and negotiation purposes, but they did share it with me. I was not thrilled by the results of the survey. They spoke of an agency that is exhausted, an agency that is frustrated, an agency that is feeling like too few things have changed over the last year plus, and they wanted answers about that. This is a truth of the agency as well, though. This is a photograph from, I believe this was the Marathon Day, or it might have been the 3rd of July. These are some of our newer officers. None of these officers was an officer prior to the pandemic. These are amazing team members, and they are gratified to be here, happy to be here, but what are we doing enough for them? Next, please. So the survey, hit a number of different issues, and I tried to address them. I held what I call an all-in, which is every member of the department is invited to attend. Certain members, including officers, were offered to come on overtime if they wanted to, if they were, not on shift, because I wanted them all to be able to understand what we were doing. And I wanted to be able to answer some of the things. There were, a survey, an internal survey is an interesting beast. It includes venting, it includes frustration, it includes misinformation, it includes a lot of things. And so I wanted to address parts, I wanted to be honest about addressing things, especially if there were deficiencies that belonged to me or the administration of the department, or deficiencies that we're trying to address. But I also wanted them to know the things that we've done. One issue that recurred was a question of communication and transparency within the department. Do we share information? Are the chiefs aware of how we feel? Is the city aware of how we feel? Next, please. And this is a quote. It's been put out numerous times publicly. The priority response plan is an example of that, but I don't think they realize, I'm sorry? I don't think they realize still that 2 to 3 cops plus a supervisor and having to transport to St. Albans and back or sit at court for hours means we have nobody available at times. Next, please. So how do we share this information? I inform them. I share staffing numbers at every single opportunity, including incident volume, internally and with the public. We've done 10 internal all-ins since July 2020. Next, please. The crisis is part of every chief's report to the commission. You guys will all attest to that. And every presentation to the NPAs or city councilors, and creating and explaining the priority response plan, it was designed to tell the public that our position is precarious. So we are trying to communicate these things. Next. I think we do more.
Yes.
I don't know what that's coming from. Oh, online attendees?
If somebody's attending this meeting on the phone, can you please mute yourself?
Is going to need a name. Hotel Phantom. No, no. Hotel Haunted. No, no, no. What is that one song called? Hotel California. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
I don't think that was Commissioner Comerford, for the record. Okay. Well, you can keep going. It seems to have abated for now. Whether it was purposeful or accidental or just a cross or something, who knows? And one more. So, and I showed them a picture of the head count, which I've just shown you. Next, please. And the effective and actual. Next, please. And the fact that what was really stressing them out in August was that downward summertime shift, which we've kind of overcome by bringing a couple of new recruits into full operational effective capacity. Next, please. But this is the issue. The number of cops got smaller and the number of calls grew over the last 5 years. Next, please. I've shown this inside this room before too, but I built it for this presentation, which was, this is total incidents versus total number of calls for service per month. And the trend line, if you click once, that trend line shows that since 2020, that trend has doubled for the total number of incidents versus total sworn. But it's not an accurate number. If you hit it again, please. Because the total sworn isn't really the issue. The big issue is how many non-supervisory on patrol. And that now is the blue, and the data that you saw on the previous slide is there in red. Click again, please, and once more. And so that's the doubling that you see along the red for the total number of sworn versus total incidents. And then you see a trebling of the data for the non-supervisory sworn on patrol. And they do the bulk of the work, but not all. We have built these other resources as well. About 12% of our incidents, or 13% so far, were handled by CSOs, not by police officers. So the truth is somewhere in between this doubling of effort and this trebling of effort, which with regard to what the sworn officers are facing. But as they pointed out in the survey, a challenge is that even the jobs that we've given to CSOs are jobs that used to be breathers for police officers. Going to a non-injury crash and taking the report is a breather compared to a domestic violence call. Being able to go, even a noisy party with college kids is a breather compared to the kinds of calls that we only send police officers to, and that they've gone to too many of over the last couple of years, including gunfire incidents. Next, please. So, an analysis, morale. Morale is not good. 75% of the respondents said that morale is poor or terrible. And these are the things they mentioned most in their answers. Now, I want to point out that sometimes the mention could be positive. I didn't make value judgments as I broke it down. They might have said that the supervisors were why morale is great. It's the only thing that's I hate, my morale's really low, but the only thing that makes me happy is my supervisors. That still got counted as one of those 5 respondents that mentioned supervisors. 12 of the respondents mentioned chiefs. That is, that was a wake-up call for me. And then we see staffing and burnout and support. What does that mean? As other things. Next, please. How do they improve it? They say staffing. They say salary. They say the chiefs. It's on us to do it. And the comments ranged. They ranged from, 2 words, no idea, to a loquacious essay. But there were, these are the common themes. Basically, if at least 10% of the respondents mentioned it, I broke it down on these charts. And then I told you how many of them mentioned it. Next, please. How can the city improve morale? There are, again, 34 respondents, 1 word pay to up to 288 words. And here are the things that they think would make morale better. A salary, support, consequences for people who they arrest, a new facility. Next, please. How can the police department improve morale? Yes?
Sorry, can you just say again, what does support, what's in that?
Sure. It meant, they basically said the word support, or they said something that was like the word support. In other words, they said, I wish the city supported us more. I wish the chief supported us more. I wish that we got more support from maybe the police commission. I wish we had more support from the courts. If that idea came up, then it was included there. But then there might be, any one of those things I just mentioned would also be another thing, which would be support and the chief, or support and the courts, and consequences. Anytime the court is mentioned, it's basically really about consequence. But sometimes they use the exact phrase, consequence. How can the police department improve morale? Well, put that on the chiefs. 9 out of the 32 respondents said it was up to us. Others said it was about staffing. Others said it was about more training, etc. Next, please. And these are the things they said. Can't all be done in a 10-hour shift. We need more officers. We can go back to having specialized units. We could be more involved in community engagement events. Some of the things that were said during public comment. We're understaffed. We need to find ways at all costs to allow for training and officer advancement. We absolutely need to completely change how we attract, recruit, and hire and train new officers. Officers aren't being compensated with more time off to recharge, especially after big, intense, stressful incidents. It's a part of burnout. Next. The condition of the building is an embarrassment. Next. Our building is falling apart. It's embarrassing to walk through with community members or tour a potential new hire. We need to stop trying to put, this was to me, stop trying to put the needs of the public first. And I'll tell you later I objected to that. People employed by BPD, sworn or non-sworn, don't feel fully supported by our administration. Next. Chiefs are supportive of their officers and are doing their best. We have a good cadre of supervisors, supportive, trying to make the city better. Next. Back our officers instead of trying to please everybody in the downtown district. Next. Apologize for defunding the police department. Next. I joined because I want to help my community and believe there may be a way to come back from where we are now, although the horizon seems bleak. And that's what we're facing, I asked the officers. So what can be done? And so we talked about what we're doing internally. Next. First of all, I do believe that it could get worse before it gets worse. And there are worst case scenarios. And these are the things that over the past 4 years, every decision I've made has been designed to do the following. Preserve our core services, which is our mission. And that includes paying attention to the public first and paying attention to the downtown district. Retain our Detective Services Bureau, DSB, both because it is required by contract and because it is a career path. If we no longer had our Detective Services Bureau, or if I diminished the Detective Services Bureau, officers would say to themselves, well, what's next for me? I don't think I want to stay here. Plus, I'm obligated by contract to keep 10 non-supervisory detectives in the Detective Bureau. And had we not had those numbers in 2020, when we had 26 gunfire incidents and 5 murders, we never would have had the success we had at addressing those gunfire incidents, solving all 5 of those murders in 2022. We need those detectives. And so I have not taken from the Detective Bureau, but I've had plenty of other law enforcement leaders, chiefs that I respect, tell me, you should have undone your narcotics unit a long time ago and put them all back on patrol. I haven't done that. Avoid emergency staffing in 12-hour shifts. The officers are clear. They love their 10-hour shifts. They work 4 days a week, 10-hour shifts each shift. and they do not want to go to 12s. 12s are disruptive to their lifestyle and their schedules. It's exhausting. 12-hour shifts are bad for people. It's been documented in many, many ways. But we have an emergency staffing clause in the contract that if we fall below a certain number of people, we can go to emergency staffing, and they get a huge amount of money for it. There's a big poison pill in the contract for that, and I've sought to avoid that. I believed that that would give me temporarily more people available on any given patrol shift, because the 12s you maximize the number of people, but you do it at the expense of those people's well-being, and they will leave eventually. I will get a couple of months of enhanced staffing, and then I will lose officers. That has been my belief for the past 4 years, which is why I haven't done it. Next. Minimize forced overtime. We've seen in other cities that, like Baltimore, where they force overtime. I do a lot of compelled overtime at the end of shifts, but we generally let officers choose who's going to do it. Somebody has to stay later tonight. Somebody needs to come in. Can someone come in early? And we get volunteers. What I have not done, and many other agencies have done, is to say, you don't have 3 days a week off anymore. You have 2. And you're going to work this day. You're going to get paid for it, but you're going to do it. And I'm allowed to do that by contract, but this is how it is. I haven't done that. Next, please. Keeping specialized roles, training opportunities. You saw those roles. I rolled the DVPO and the narcotics officer back to patrol over the summer because the call volume was higher. I just sent them back to their specialized roles because I want a domestic violence prevention officer. Domestic violence is a tremendously important issue, and to have an officer who is dedicated to that is better for victims, and it's better for seeing those cases through. It's also a load lightener for other officers. Officers on the road can go to a domestic violence situation, deal with it, and then say, I'm pushing this to the DVPO because that person is better trained to deal with it. And that's better for them. It does lessen their workload. It's also an opportunity that is a career opportunity. Other officers look and say, well, when that person finishes her tour as the DVPO, it's an opportunity for me to try to take that role and get off of patrol and learn something. So I've kept it. But there too, specialized roles in an agency that is as low as we are, to be 27 when we used to have 52 non-supervisory officers on patrol, and now we have 27. A lot of people would not have kept these specialized roles. Next, please. Staffing and workload. We had the best hiring year in 2023 in our agency's history, at least our known history, but we need more. Next, please. It can't all be done in a 10-hour shift, says one quote. So what are we doing to address workload? One. We have linked our Valcor and Axon to reduce data entry. We are working on, we got a great new Axon contract that the City Council approved thanks to our executive manager, Shannon Trammell. We have simplified tagging of Axon. We're going to allow them not to type entries for certain events, but instead just say, see the Axon. Axon also offers transcription services that we are looking into. These are ways to reduce the amount of paperwork that officers do to diminish their workload. Next, please. We are working on pre-charge referral. We have a new memorandum of understanding with the Community Justice Center, which is a component of the Community Economic Development Office of Burlington, or CEDO. The CJC is a place for alternative justice and restorative justice and pre-charge referrals. We preserve officer discretion. We ensure that the state's attorney knows about these cases, but it lessens the workload when it comes to eligible offenders. If a person is an eligible offender and has committed an act of retail theft, for example, referring it to community justice is the best outcome and is less work for the officer in the long run. The problem for us right now is that there are a lot of people who are not eligible for the CJC because we are dealing with so many recidivists. And recidivists don't respond to that kind of opportunity because you have to be able to understand what you've done. You have to be able to accept responsibility for what you've done, to work with the person who was harmed by what you've done. And far too many of the people we deal with day in and day out, the people that we see, frankly, unhoused, open-air drug use, they are not in positions in their life to do that kind of restorative work. Simpler administrative tasks with a system called LEFTA that Executive Manager Trammell put in place. Next, please. And overtime adjustments, also thanks to Executive Manager Trammell, to try to reduce some overtime work that we've been giving them. Next, please. Workload 2, what else are we doing? We've augmented patrol leadership. We're reassigning a Kuzi supervisor to USB. We took the admin lieutenant out. You saw that admin position was empty. So that means that poor Deputy Chief Labarge has had to do more work, but we were able to put that person into a different role that is operational. Next, please. We've enhanced our DSB referrals, and that's the Detective Services Bureau. That means that when patrol gets certain kinds of cases, they turn them over to the Detective Services Bureau. In retaining the detectives, their workload is frankly less than that of patrol, and they're not run as ragged by constant radio calls for service. So what instead we've done is we've said, well, then you need to pick up some of that workload. More cases are being sent to DSB than used to be. The downside is this: USB, Uniform Services Bureau, patrol officers, they like to follow cases through. They like to pick up a robbery and be able to investigate it a bit and learn some of those tactics. They don't necessarily want to send them all over to the detectives. But unfortunately, the radio immediately calls them to something else, and they don't really have the time for that. And so for both the workload and for the sake of victims, really important, we're doing more to DSB. Next, please. We have decreased our overdose response already. We have altered, these are sort of in-house terms, 101 and 102, which is how online reports got adjusted. And our new city website won't take online reporting, so we're going to be working on a broader online reporting model through Valcor, which is a separate system that is our computer-aided dispatch system. That's what all of our calls for service go through, the Valcor system. Next, please. Overtime and training. Find ways at all costs to allow for training. Next, please. Oh, sorry. Next. Well, last year we spent $110,000 on training. And that included a whole bunch of different things: wellness training, conflict resolution, gang investigations, etc. Next. Executive Manager Trammell got more. She increased it by 46%, and that's to the great credit of her, but also to the mayor and money that the mayor made available to us to make certain that we can keep up with our training goals. Next, please. And in October, this was obviously from August, this all in, we'll send for the most time more than a dozen people to experience the IACP conference, which we did. Next. What are we doing for recruitment? This crisis, the crisis described in the survey hinges on staffing. All of it really comes down to staffing. They may be mad about the chiefs, or they may be mad about supervisors, or they may be mad about the city, but what they're really mad about is we don't have enough people to do the job that we're asked to do. So we need to grow. And what are we going to do? Well, here's some ideas. We absolutely need to completely change how we attract, recruit, hire, and train new officers. How are we going to do it? We are, I need all employees to come aboard, I told them, since this was a message to all employees. Next. The recruitment team has developed something called a LORAP, which is a Lateral Officer Relocation Assistance Plan, a NERP, which is a new employee referral program, and a sabbatical plan. And I'm going to be presenting those to the City Council in December as a part of a requirement that the City Council, as part of a resolution, the City Council asked me to give them a number of different things about where we are with regard to staffing and regrowth. And I'm going to be proposing these. They're expensive. They cost money. A lateral officer relocation plan is essentially move money. If you're coming from California, we'll give you $5,000, $7,000, $2,000, something to help ease your move. A NERP, a new employee referral program, is to say, hey, we need everybody in this agency to be a recruiter, but I'll pay you for it. You bring me a new person who actually gets hired, and I'll give you a day off. You bring me a person who gets hired and makes it through the academy, we'll give you a certain kind of bonus at the end of that person's graduation from the academy. They make it through field training and become an officer, we will give you another piece of something. And that encourages people here to see this as their problem too, and incentivizes them helping themselves by making it bigger. Sabbatical is entirely about retention. My dad was a professor at UVM for 35 years. He took a sabbatical. I remember with great joy a year that we spent in Puerto Rico, as he did a lot of research on the way the Spaniards had really both devastated and then changed the island tremendously. We got to live in Puerto Rico. I went to school in Puerto Rico. I made friends in Puerto Rico. That was an amazing opportunity for him and for us. I want something similar for officers. I can't give them a year in PR, but what I can do is I can say you can have 2 weeks off to do something that is valuable. Go work for Habitat for Humanity. Go help with flood recovery in North Carolina. Whatever it is, we'll pay you that. But that too comes out of our coffers because we have to give that person salary and benefits while we're not getting the benefit of that individual's work. But are we doing something to keep them? I think we are. And again, those plans will be described in December. Next, please. We're pitching a reevaluation of the educational bonus. One of our newest officers, Recruit Chun, who graduates from the academy tomorrow. He has a PhD from Notre Dame. He is from Korea. He is he's here on a green card. We do hire people with green card. We're somewhat unique. Very, very few law enforcement agencies do that. But we've had some great candidates from that. He is incredibly smart, incredibly capable, and he said, look, these educational bonuses that you currently offer are not up to snuff with regard to national standards, and here's some ideas. And I'm going to be taking those ideas and including them. Next, please. And this is, again, catching up with our previous stated goals. And Mayor Weinberger, the previous mayor, and I had articulated some hiring goals, and we have not kept up with them. I have not kept up with them, but we're not that far off. Next, please. This was a projected headcount, and you'll see down at the bottom, that is from August 1st of 2022. So this is 2 years before the all-in was done in August of 2024. And I believe this was a rational, reasonable way that we could progress from our low point of 61 officers in August 2022. We were at this point, we had just closed on a new contract that the city council and then Mayor Weinberger had approved. It was the best contract in the region by a large margin, and we started to make some real progress. This is where I thought we could go. Next, please. This is where I projected we would have been in August of 2024, and that's where we actually were in August of 2024. So we weren't that far off in August, but we've lost a couple more since, which is problematic for us. Next, please. Retention. What are we doing for retention? If we don't have retention, if we don't keep the 65 that we currently have, and really it's going to drop to 64 by the end of the calendar year. Excuse me, it's at 64 right now. It's going to drop to 63 by the end of the calendar year, and therefore we'll start with 63 on January 1st, barring any other unknown departures. If we don't keep those, we are in a real tough spot because we need those officers. They're the foundation. What are we doing to keep them? A lot of these are bargaining issues. Officers aren't being compensated with enough time off to recharge, especially after large, intense, stressful incidents, and a large reason for burnout and the lack of, and that's a large reason for burnout and the lack of morale. Next, please. The recruitment team has proposed that sabbatical program I mentioned. I'm preparing a document for the mayor. It's now for the city council because the resolution in September required it to go to the city council that consolidates all these plans. Employee wellness is a key to long work life. We have a program called Fit Force where officers can take time off to work out from their shift. They can do it a certain number of times per week for a certain number of hours. And we've expanded that not to be just you can go and hit the gym, not to be just you can go to, there's a place where a lot of officers do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in South Burlington. It can also now be, do you want to take time to meditate? Do you want to take time to get a massage? Do you want to take time to go speak with a therapist or someone? We have an on-retainer therapist who does work on mental health wellness, and any of those are now opportunities for Fit Force as well. So it's not just about physical fitness, and that's about keeping people feeling right. Next, please. Again, there's a woman named Sarah Trieb. UBSAC is the awful title that she's got. It stands for Uniform Bureau Support and Administrative Coordinator. But UBSAC Trieb, we never use that term, but just Sarah Trieb organizes the city's wellness offerings. The city has a ton of wellness offerings. This is a great city to work for. It's got acupuncture and chiropractors and discounted gym memberships and yoga and bike share and chair massages and physical therapy. And she's also used some of that city wellness money to get us new gym equipment. We recently have cycled through a lot of good new gym equipment. Next, please. Facilities. This is a big one for all of us. We spend a third of our life in our offices, according to the most common estimate. Next, please. The condition of the building's an embarrassment. That's how they feel. I don't disagree with them. Next, please. So here's a whole bunch of things that we went through one by one. Flooring concerns, the city knows. We've got HVAC issues on the roof that we're doing. We cleaned all the HVAC over the summer. We have an administrative lobby project that's being done, gym updates, blah. There's a lot there. Next, please. This compares what other agencies have, and I've shown this in various places in previous police chief reports. It was part of the budget report in May of 2024, which is why the date at the bottom is highlighted. All of our regional peers have newer facilities than we. Next, please. Discipline came up. What are we doing? Consistent enforcement of standards and policies, especially with regard to punishment and IA processes. This was a component of why they were frustrated with the internal department administration, including me and the chiefs. Next, please. What have we done? Well, we've done a lot, especially with this body. I am incredibly grateful to the Burlington Police Commission for the work that we did on overhauling DD40 completely. And I believe that the new directive is really consistent and fair and gives us a very clear path of how we handle internal discipline. And I believe that'll address some of the concerns that they expressed in those surveys. Frankly, they don't know what the system is until they're subject to it a lot of times. So sometimes, surveys tend to have people saying things that they've heard third hand, and you don't know that because you don't know who said it. You can't go talk to them about it. You can't ask them, was it you who said this, and why did you say this? It's just a moment of expression, but they all have to be addressed. And ultimately, I was grateful for that survey, even if it was tough to hear at points. Next. Mission and purpose. A lot of them asked, do we have a mission? Are we articulating mission? And I took some issue with this one. Next, please. Trying to put the needs of the public first. Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. And if people, and I said it very clearly at the All-In, if you're not on board for that, this isn't the job for you. Next, please. We are responsive to the flavor of the day. We have to be. If there are issues that are happening at the library, that's what we're going to deal with. If there are issues that are happening at the waterfront, that's what we're going to deal with. Next. We are committed to policing with the citizens of Burlington to achieve a safe, healthy, and self-reliant community. That is the current mission statement of the department. I believe in it, but I don't think it's a good mission statement. Next. Next. Our police service exists to keep people safe by preventing and responding to crime and disorder with and for our neighbors. That is my preference. And I would undertake an effort to change the mission statement if I had time to do so. But this is what I say. I say this in every public appearance I make. I say this in most of my internal emails. I say this to officers to the point where they roll their eyes when they hear it, when I say it. This is the mission for me. It is the mission that I believe we've tried to endeavor to do over the past 4 years to the best of our ability, despite not having all the tools we need to do it. Do we exist to safeguard property and protect the haves from the have-nots? Absolutely not. Do we exist to make lives better? Yes. To reduce harm? Yes. Next, please. Our object is to make Burlington safe and fair everywhere for everyone, and just about everything I write with that as well. Next, please. Morale. People want to be heard. They want to be heard outside and inside. And one of our challenges has been that we have not been able to let people be heard outside enough. We used to go to every single call for service when it came through. We just don't anymore. We don't have the resources or the ability to do it. But people feel unheard. If something happens to you that is frankly a low-level crime, and it's one that we're not going to be able to address at this stage because all 4 officers that are covering the entirety of our 15 square mile city and all 44,000 residents, they are all on calls for service that involve violence. And that's what they're doing. And you call and say, I just discovered that my car has been broken. Somebody smashed the back window of my car. I am incredibly upset by that. This has never happened to me before. I get that. I hate that we are not responsive enough to that. I tell officers routinely, you may think this is just another broken window. You've seen 15 of them in the past month, and it's not a big deal. It's a big deal to that person. We have to be able to hear this when people bring it to us. We have to be able to say we're going to do something about it, but we can't right now. And inside, the officers feel the same way. They want to know why the chiefs or the sergeants aren't doing enough to make their shift better. Why don't we have 6 people on this shift? Why is it just the 4 of us and I am so darn tired? I don't have an answer for you any more than I have an answer for the person in the New North End who called about the broken window. I just don't have the people to make this for you. And we can't do this right now, but I want you to feel heard. I want you to know, and to the extent that you don't feel heard, this was what I said to them at the All-In, that is a failing, and I'm sorry for that. I want you to know that you are. And I want you to know that we're trying to do what we can, but there are certain things that we can't. Next, please. A change in morale will only come from the top, said one. Next. I don't think the city has an impact on our morale. I think that's built from within. So they're all over the map because they're all individual people. Next, please. You don't get what you expect, you get what you accept. I don't like what we're accepting as a city. I don't like that we're accepting low-level public disorder. I don't like that we're accepting small crimes that we can't respond to. I don't like that we're accepting retail theft because we can't get to the crime to address it when it's happening, and even when we make arrests, the courts are sufficiently backlogged that they won't take nonviolent crime. I don't like any of that. I don't like that the officers feel that we are accepting 4 officers on a shift and that we are therefore expecting that. I don't like any of that. Internal and external, what you allow is what will continue. Next, please. Every team has to understand the importance of the other teams, and that's part of our internal culture. It is difficult for some officers to understand the value of CAPE. Some get it intuitively and they understand it. I have officers who were members of CAPE and became police officers. I have officers who were members of the street outreach team and became police officers. But I also have officers who are there to lock people up. That's what they want to do. And we need officers like that. We need officers who understand that law enforcement involves enforcement at times. Everybody in the unit, though, has to understand the value of everybody else. And I talk a lot about that inside. Next, please. Rescue, seize evidence for the court, and broker social cooperation. Those are the fancy terms for policing. That's policing. We rescue when emergencies happen and people are really in dire need. We seize evidence from the court, whether that's physical evidence or people. And you know, the Fourth Amendment controls how we can do that or not, but we do. And then we broker social cooperation, because when we get to City Hall Park and you have some people who are enjoying it in one way and some people who are in it and using it in a different way that may not be lawful, we have to broker how they're going to cooperate with one another and how to balance the lawful needs of one group with another lawful need. Next, please. Burlington has the capability to become what it was and even better. I enjoy working as a team. I like many of my coworkers. I like problem solving and investigative aspects. I want to interact with the community. My initial desires to work for the residents of the city have evaporated over the past 4 years, and now instead I'm here because I'm stuck. I still believe in the job and the work, and I love the work. The realistic standard that BPD sets for itself, stellar, caring, empathetic policing. I want to play a role in creating trust with the public while also keeping the community safe. Burlington is the only place in the state that gets all aspects of law enforcement and makes the job enjoyable. I felt like we were making a difference and helping the city. Currently, I feel like we are treading water and doing the bare minimum because we don't have the staffing and the support to take care of the city correctly. All of the cops that work here wanted to get better and are willing to help with that vision. I love this city and the people I work with. This career has given me, I don't know if that was my typo in writing it or if that was in the actual quote, the opportunity to make my life better. So that is the survey and you know, what I confronted with the officers about it. And I am, you know, it was internal. It wasn't supposed to be made public, but in the long run, I don't think that it is bad that it was. And I am still working to address these things. We have changed some issues around our supervision and around staffing to try to address some of these issues. We are working on, again, leveraging more training for officers this year. We have a wellness program that's in place. We brought in a video company to make recruiting videos and have some product from that is ready for review and hopefully for release. We are seeking to work with a company that would help us target that video product and other advertising materials to the right eyeballs so that we can get those people to come here from other places. And we are working hard on bringing aboard 2 new deputy chiefs. And again, I'm certain that the mayor will be working hard on finding a new chief as well. You know, this agency has so much more to give. It is, you can't have a community like ours without public safety. And I know that this agency can reclaim its history and be what it has been in the past. It's going to take time, though. That's it. That's all I got.
Thank you, Chief. Are there any questions from commissioners? I see Commissioner Cox has her hand up. Commissioner Cox?
Hi. You know, I do have a couple of questions, but I just first I wanted to let you know that I've been sort of like in just very informal dialogue with Corporal Coro in his role as the BPOA president, because in thinking about the survey and also just my own experience of talking to people that I'm in small groups with and that sort of thing. And when I mention some great thing the police department's doing, I always get the response. They say, well, we've never heard any of this. Why don't we hear this? And so I had proposed to Corporal Coro that I know like at my, what I consider my church, the UU Society, they have time for different groups to make presentations after services. So there's the services and there's the coffee hour, and then somewhere in there, then a group might come and make a presentation. So I proposed, couldn't they make a presentation of some kind? And I've reached out to the new Reverend Karen Johnston about that, and I think that it would be positively received by the UU Society. And the UU Society is great because it has a lot of activists. So it has a lot of people that are on NPRs, and it has a lot of people that are like in VIA and things like that. And I think that if they could learn more from the officers themselves about what the officers are doing. So if I had a couple examples in my mind. I had one example was that they could go and give a presentation, for example, about the ICAT training and how crisis response using the ICAT model really does lead to less use of force, less injuries to bystanders, less injuries to officers, less injuries to everybody. And it's just more effective than other previous approaches. That might be something that would be really useful for them to understand, that about the sorts of training and the sorts of programs that the BPD is involved with. And then another one might be, for example, what might community policing look like once we have a more robust numbers of police officers to be able to actually do community policing, what that might look like, to just get populations behind that. And then I'm hoping that maybe that's a first step, but then go on from there, maybe make a presentation or interact with VIA and interact with other congregations in town, and then interact with am I saying it right, the NPAs, Neighborhood Planning Associations, and just to have, instead of being an entity that's just entirely separate from the rest of the community, to just have more local involvement. And Corporal Coro was quite responsive to this and agreed that he thought this would be a good idea. So I guess my question to you, Chief, is if they were say one or two officers went and gave a presentation like at UU Society, or went to an NPA meeting and gave a presentation of some kind, can they get paid for doing that?
I mean, we have to sort of run that up against our overtime budget, but I don't see why not. Certainly, I could send on-shift officers. The BPOA can do that on their time, and they get certain allowances for overtime for meetings and things. Could we, have an overtime detail that is about outreach? Possibly. Part of the issue is that when I bring somebody in for overtime, I'm obligated to give them, I think it's at least 3 hours, it might be 4, and not necessarily all these things last that long. So there are challenges, but those are things we can talk about and figure out. So yeah, an idea like this is valuable. Certainly the outreach part is valuable.
And then the other thing that I had discussed with them was in this sort of fledgling rewrite of 1303, which is the Crisis Response Directive, although it's not called that. It has a very obnoxious name right now in the old version that I don't even like to think about. But it's really about responding to people with mental health conditions or other things that puts them into a crisis situation. And I really wanted to get, I did want you to read just a couple pages that I had done so far, and that's why I sent it to you. But I think that really what I was looking to, and that's why I discussed it with Corporal Coro, was having like one or two of the training officers, the ICAT training officers, kind of work with me on it, so that we have a directive that makes sense to the officers, as well as to me, at least as a community advocate and activist, that it would make sense to everybody. And he totally thought that was a good idea, and is going to get some people in touch with me on that, so we can go forward. But he mentioned like that he really valued the fact that I wanted to collaborate with them on this, and I'm going like, well, of course, this is like this is the officer's job. Of course, I want the officers to like be involved in this directive. It doesn't make any sense for just outsiders to write it. Do you see what I'm saying? And so again, though, I'd sort of want to make sure that they get compensated for their time and effort.
Certainly, if they were cooperating on that, they would be. I mean, that would be done on job time. And I agree with you. I think it's eminently sensible to have them weigh in on how a directive like that. I agree with you too. I think that I don't mean to. I know that you don't like the term. I think that we should get rid of the term diminished capacity and talk instead about crisis response, and make a policy for that, and rename it and make certain that it is a little bit more up to date with regard to the things we're doing, including ICAT. Joe, Coro, and others they've all been trained in ICAT. Many of them are instructors in ICAT as well, and getting them on board to sort of review and talk about it would be eminently sensible.
So, okay, so that's great. The other thing I was thinking about is that I did notice in the comments by the officers that they discussed this issue of, officer fatigue. And sometimes it's just accumulated stress fatigue, I think. Sometimes it's like running around and being involved in a big case, and then you're just sort of fatigued. And we did talk about this, I think, in either last meeting or the meeting before that and I'm very familiar with this in my Coast Guard role, in my Coast Guard days of having, boat crews out there like responding to some big case, and that we don't use them again right away. We give them a rest time, and then so we might have like a ready crew and a reserve crew, and then we send out the reserve crew and let the ready crew like rest. And I think that obviously it's like really difficult to do something like that when you have so few people. And so I completely recognize that that's an issue, but maybe that would be like another thing that could be thought about in terms of collaborating between the community and the officers, of what can the community do and what can the officers do to maybe come up with some solutions to some of these issues.
Yeah.
Any other comments by commissioners? Questions? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, and I really appreciate it. I know that was a lot of John Murad talking at you, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Sure. Commission business. Do any commissioners have any comments they want to address the public at this time? Commissioner Cox, is your hand still up?
Yeah, I put it down and then back up again. Sorry. I just was saying I had sent around a thing about the data, but I just wanted to put that off until next month because I felt like we were going to have a very full meeting this evening with the extended presentation by the chief.
Okay, that'll go on the next month's agenda. If there is a meeting next month, it's scheduled to be on Christmas Eve, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be a problem, but we'll circle back to that. Next on the agenda is commendations, and we did receive, I'm just going to read from the email that we received from the chief, a couple of comments that were that the police department received. First one was from Colby Schnellenberger, the principal of Edmonds Elementary. I wanted to extend my appreciation for the Burlington Police Department. I know that these are difficult times to be an officer, but all of my experiences with your officers have been very good, even when I got pulled over. Oops. I also want to thank CAIP team for helping my school with its relocation drill last month. Yeah, relocation.
I'm sorry, that's the safety drill that I put up and
Yeah.
sort of showed. I may be unaware. Maybe the schools are calling them relocation drills now instead of safety drills, and
Okay.
I'll change that next time I talk about them.
Because the kids are relocating? Is that what it is?
There's both shelter-in-place drills, and then there's also like relocate, like get out of the area or move. And so probably both of those are often a component of the drills.
Okay, thank you. The other one is Chief Murad, we at Lund thank you and your whole department for all you do to keep our community safe. We appreciate your devotion to your duty. We know we can count on you to come to our aid if the need arises. Sincerely, all of us at Lund. The next item on the agenda are commissioner comments. I think I skipped over that. Finally, it's executive session. Can I have a motion to move for a special finding that premature general knowledge of the commission's hearing of complaints and personnel matters would clearly place the city or a person involved at a substantial disadvantage? So moved. Can I have a second? All those in favor? Say aye, aye. Can I have a motion to move into executive session based upon the special findings pursuant to 1 VSA 313A1D? Second.
I will make that motion.
Okay, we are adjourned. We're going to go into, we're going into executive session, and we won't be returning after.
So we have a 5-minute break before we convene.